At the welcome party, the fake heir leaped from the second floor. From that moment on, my sister hated me for 10 years, and my fiancé regarded me as her mortal enemy. She feigned an engagement, but on our wedding night, she had my limbs broken and locked me in the basement. For 10 years, I lived like a dog, begging for scraps, wishing for death but unable to find it. Finally, I had the opportunity to escape back to the Gu family for help, but Mom and Dad wouldn't open the door. Owen is the only son of the Gu family. My fiancé came to the door, and my sister threw me at her feet like a dead dog. Everyone regretted recognizing me as part of the Gu family, even me. In the end, I jumped from the roof, returning to 10 years ago. This time, I decided to return the identity of the Gu family's son to Owen Gu, fulfilling everyone's wishes. Tell Owen not to be childish. Even if Ethan returns to the Gu family, he will still be the second young master of the Gu family. That cold voice echoed again, like a sharp blade piercing my eardrums. I suddenly snapped back to reality, staring intently at my reflection in the mirror. That young face, that burgundy suit, and that countenance unmarred by the passage of time. I really had returned to 10 years ago. Back to the welcome party that changed my life forever. In my past life, Owen Gu threatened to kill himself at this party, forcing the Gu family to choose one of us. Everyone thought he was just being dramatic, even Ashley Gu remained indifferent. Only when he actually died did they regret it deeply. And I became the tool for them to vent their guilt, driven out of the Gu family, without support or reliance. When I was living on the streets, it was Serena Shin, who had returned from studying abroad, who took me in. She said that although the recognition ceremony didn't happen, she still considered me her fiancé and that we should get married. I was touched by her affection and agreed to her proposal. Who knew that she only tricked me into marriage to torture me, to avenge Owen Gu? On my most anticipated wedding night, she broke my limbs and locked me in the basement, forcing me to live like a dog begging for scraps. 10 years, a full 10 years, I lived in the dark basement, wishing for death but unable to find it. Every time I thought I was about to be free, she would send someone to heal me, and then continue the torture. Until one time, I finally found an opportunity to escape, returning to the Gu family for help. I thought that because of our blood relation, they would save my life, but they ruthlessly turned me away. But they were the ones who plastered the city with missing person posters, wanting to recognize me. What was my fault? I stared coldly at my reflection in the mirror, vowing in my heart. This time, I will never recognize this family, these people. I desperately suppressed the anger surging in my heart, smiling gently at Ashley Gu. Ashley, cancel the welcome party first, and go coax Owen. Ashley Gu frowned, clearly surprised by my suggestion. Ethan, the guests are already here. If we cancel now, what will people think of you? What will they think of our Gu family? I took a deep breath, my tone still gentle. What is face compared to a life? Besides, as long as you acknowledge me, I don't care what others think of me. Ashley Gu seemed touched by my understanding, and a hint of relief flashed in her eyes. She nodded. Okay, I'll go check on Owen first. You go keep Mom and Dad company and appease the guests. I smiled slightly, watching her leave, but sneering in my heart. After Ashley Gu left, I accompanied Mom and Dad in the banquet hall, apologizing to the guests. Even though everyone cast strange glances at me, I maintained a polite smile throughout. Just as the guests were about to get up and leave, the doors of the banquet hall suddenly burst open. Owen Gu walked in, wearing the same burgundy suit as me. His appearance instantly attracted everyone's attention, the guests whispering and shifting their gaze between me and him. Owen Gu raised his chin, a hint of provocation in his eyes. Everyone, today's party will continue, but it's not a welcome party, it's my birthday party. I watched him coldly, without any emotion. The past me might have felt angry and wronged, but the current me no longer cared about these things. Ashley Gu also walked over at this time, her tone unquestionable. Ethan, let Owen finish this birthday party first, and we'll hold your welcome party later. Mom and Dad's faces were a little unsightly, clearly dissatisfied with Ashley Gu's sudden change of plans. Mom was about to speak up to stop her, but Owen Gu had already walked over, his voice full of grievance. Mom, today is my birthday, don't you want to celebrate it with me? Ethan won't mind, right? He said, glancing at me provocatively, a hint of triumph on his lips. Dad frowned, seeming like he wanted to say something, but Owen Gu put his arm around his shoulders. Dad, please say yes, okay? Dad sighed, ultimately not saying anything more. Mom also shook her head helplessly, gently patting the back of Owen Gu's hand. Okay, whatever you want. I watched the scene, sneering in my heart. As expected, Owen Gu was always their darling, and I was just a dispensable outsider. The guests in the banquet hall awkwardly sat back down, their eyes shifting back and forth between me and Owen Gu. Serena Shin's parents sat at the main table, their faces gloomy, clearly very dissatisfied with my status in the Gu family. Mrs. Shin whispered to Mr. Shin, "What's the use of marrying a man like that? He can't even handle a party. It's so embarrassing." I stood among the guests, a faint smile on my face, letting them judge me as they pleased. Anyway, I had already decided to leave, their opinions and discussions were no longer important to me. After the banquet, I took the initiative to send Serena Shin's parents to their car. Mrs. Shin glanced at me coldly, with undisguised disgust. I smiled slightly, my tone calm, and, let's call off the engagement between Serena Shin and me. Why not give it to Owen Gu, how about that? Mrs. Shin was stunned for a moment, then a hint of joy flashed in her eyes. Are you serious? I nodded, of course. Owen and Serena Shin are a match made in heaven. Mr. Shin also showed a satisfied smile. Ethan, it's good that you think this way. Our Shin family will remember your kindness. I smiled faintly, not saying anything more. Watching their car drive away, I turned to go home, but a black Maybach blocked my way. The car door opened, and Serena Shin got out of the car, walking towards me with a grim expression. She grabbed my wrist, her grip so tight it almost crushed my bones. Ethan Gu, what trick are you trying to pull now? I frowned, trying to break free from her hand, but she held on tightly. I looked up at her, a hint of mockery in my eyes. Serena Shin, what do you mean by this? I'm just fulfilling your wishes with Owen Gu, aren't you satisfied? Serena Shin was taken aback, seemingly not expecting me to say that. A complex emotion flashed in her eyes, her voice softening. Why? But before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by a shout of Serena. Owen Gu ran out of nowhere. Seeing Serena Shin holding my hand, his eyes turned red. Serena, how could you do this to me? After saying that, he turned to leave. Serena Shin immediately let go of my hand, chasing after him without hesitation, not even looking at me again. I stood there, rubbing my wrists that had been reddened by her grip, a cold smile on the corner of my lips. Whether in my past life or this life, Serena Shin only had Owen Gu in her eyes. That night, I began packing my luggage. Since the Gu family had no place for me, why should I stay here? But just as I was halfway through packing, the door suddenly burst open. Ashley Gu rushed in, her face pale. Ethan Gu, Owen's old own, has relapsed, and he's fainted. I looked up, watching her coldly. So what? What does that have to do with me? If you hadn't been flirting with Serena Shin, Owen wouldn't have been so upset that he got sick. Ashley Gu's voice was filled with suppressed anger. The doctor said Owen's liver is failing and he needs a transplant immediately. And you are the only one who is a match. I was stunned for a moment, then laughed coldly. So, you want me to donate my liver to him? Ashley Gu didn't answer, but her eyes said it all. I stood up, looking straight into her eyes. Ashley Gu, what makes you think I would agree? Ashley Gu's face became even more unsightly. She stepped forward, her words threatening. Ethan Gu, don't force me to take action. Owen is our brother, you can't just stand by and watch him die. I took a step back, my heart ice cold. Mom and Dad also arrived at this time. I trembled as I looked at them. Mom, Dad, is that what you think too? Mom lowered her head, avoiding my gaze. Ethan, you are both our sons. Owen is our child too, please save him. The doctor said that most donors can regenerate a portion of their liver after it's removed. Nothing will happen. I laughed coldly, my eyes filled with despair. What if I'm one of the rare cases? What if I die? Would you care? Dad was silent for a moment, finally sighing. Ethan, don't be stubborn. This is for Owen, and for the Gu family. I closed my eyes in despair. Even if I was reborn, it still hurt to hear those words from my own family. Ashley Gu didn't give me another chance to resist. She took out a syringe filled with anesthetic and injected it into my arm without hesitation. A cold liquid flowed into my veins, and my consciousness gradually faded. When I woke up again, I was lying in a sterile hospital room, the air filled with the smell of disinfectant. Sunlight streamed in through the curtains, hurting my eyes. I turned my head slightly and saw Serena Shin propping her head up with her hand, dozing off beside my bed. Her face was still beautiful and radiant, but it made me feel disgusted. Seeming to sense my movement, she slowly opened her eyes, her gaze landing on my face. Ethan, you're awake. I didn't say anything, just watched her coldly. She continued to speak to herself. You saved Owen, I will register our marriage according to the engagement, and let you be my nominal husband. But before that, I want to give Owen a grand wedding, so everyone knows that he is my one and only love. I laughed coldly, my voice hoarse but mocking. There's no need for that. You can just marry Owen Gu. Serena Shin frowned, reaching out to grab my hand, her voice filled with urgency. Ethan, don't say things you don't mean. I know you both love and fear me, but this time Owen is fine, and I will treat you well. I shuddered and violently shook off her hand. So she was reborn too. My emotions completely erupted. Serena Shin, don't flatter yourself. I only have hatred for you, no love. Serena Shin's face instantly turned pale. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but was interrupted by a shout from outside the door. Ashley Gu burst in, her face flushed with excitement. Serena, Owen is awake. Serena Shin immediately stood up and rushed out without hesitation. Her movements were too hasty, tearing the 4-needle from the back of my hand, and blood spurted out. Ashley Gu glanced at me, her tone cold. Ethan, don't be childish. Owen just woke up and needs someone to take care of him. After saying that, she followed Serena Shin out of the room. The door was slammed shut, but it couldn't block the sounds of laughter and joy from outside. I lay alone in bed, feeling endless sorrow. Perhaps out of guilt, they had arranged the most expensive VIP room for me. I was discharged from the hospital in just 7 days. And Owen Gu and Serena Shin's wedding was also being scheduled. They decided to hold a grand beach wedding at the Gu family's Ocean View Ville. On the day of the wedding, the beach was bustling with activity. Guests came and went, dressed in gorgeous gowns and suits, smiling and congratulating the newlyweds. I stood on a distant rock, and jumped into the turbulent sea. Owen Gu, wearing a white suit, entered, arm in arm with Serena Shin. He looked around, deliberately asking, "Where's Ethan? Why isn't he here to watch? Is he still blaming me?" Mom and Dad followed, blaming. Ethan is being so inconsiderate. Today is Owen's big day, how can he be so stubborn? Ashley Gu frowned impatiently. I'll go find him. Just then, someone suddenly shouted, "Help!" Someone jumped into the sea. Serena Shin and Ashley Gu's expressions changed drastically, and they rushed to the sea without a second thought. A black diamond brooch lay on the rocks near the sea, standing out against the white stones. Serena Shin picked up the brooch, trembling, her voice hoarse and desperate. "It's Ethan. This is Ethan's brooch." She threw herself on the beach, ignoring the waves crashing over her, shouting at the sea, "Ethan! Ethan!" Owen Gu also came over, his face panicked. "Serena, Ethan, how could he?" Serena Shin ignored him, staring intently at the sea, her eyes filled with regret and pain. Ashley Gu stood aside, her face pale. How could this happen? Mom and Dad hugged each other in pain, Mom's voice trembling. "Ethan, my Ethan, how could he be so foolish?" Seeing this, Owen Gu quickly stepped forward, trying to comfort Mom. "Mom, don't be too sad. Ethan, he just couldn't think straight." But Mom violently pushed him away. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't ruined Ethan's welcome party and stolen his wedding, he wouldn't have been so upset. You drove him to his death." Owen Gu was pushed to the ground, looking stunned. Serena Shin came back to her senses and quickly helped Owen Gu up. "Owen, don't cry, it's not your fault." Ashley Gu also stopped Mom, trying to calm her anger. "Mom, calm down. It's not just Owen's fault, we are all responsible." Mom couldn't hear anything, her tears falling uncontrollably. "My Ethan, my son." She cried hysterically, Dad standing aside, at a loss. The entire Gu family was in chaos. Meanwhile, I, wearing diving gear, had quietly swum to the nearest shore. This was the route I had planned long ago, and my jeep, which I had filled with gas, was parked on the shore. I quickly took off my diving gear and opened the car door, breathing a sigh of relief. But just as I was about to start the car, a dark shadow flashed behind me. Before I could react, a white cloth soaked in drugs was pressed over my mouth and nose. I struggled for a few moments, but quickly lost consciousness. When I woke up again, it was pitch black all around. I tried to move and found that my hands and feet were tied, making it impossible for me to move. Suddenly, a beam of flashlight shone, blinding me. When my eyes adjusted to the light, I saw the person standing in front of me, Owen Gu. He sneered sarcastically, "Ethan Gu, you're really something, coming up with the trick of escaping by shedding your skin. Do you know? Your departure has really made things difficult for me. Mom and Dad are taking their anger out on me, now I'm an outcast in the Gu family." Facing his accusations, I sneered. Wasn't he the same to me in my past life? I was just returning the favor. My attitude completely enraged him. His face instantly turned ferocious, and he raised his hand and slapped me hard. "What are you laughing at? You messed up my plan, you deserve to die." I turned my head, my face burning with pain, but I still sneered. Owen Gu was shaking with anger, and shouted towards the door, "Brothers, help me teach him a lesson." As soon as he finished speaking, all the lights in the factory suddenly turned on. The blinding light made it impossible for me to open my eyes for a moment. When my vision returned, I realized that this was an abandoned factory. And the brat hers Owen Gu was talking about were actually the villagers from the mountain where I was kidnapped. They walked towards me with a grinning expression, their faces filled with disgusting greed and malice. I was horrified, my heart ice cold. Without thinking too much, I quickly grabbed a piece of iron on the ground and slashed hard at my wrist. Blood spurted out instantly, but the rope was also cut open. Ignoring the pain, I hurriedly cut open the rope on my feet, struggled to stand up, and ran towards the door. However, 2 villagers were also guarding the door. They blocked my way, their faces showing a chilling smile. I had no choice but to turn around and run towards the second floor. Their terrible laughter and footsteps came from behind. I rushed to the second floor in a panic, and after looking around, my eyes locked on an old window. Without hesitation, I gritted my teeth, smashed open the glass, and jumped. Those people obviously didn't expect me to be so decisive. They were stunned by the window, watching me fall from the second floor, and forgot to chase for a moment. Fortunately, there was a sewage river below, and I didn't fall to my death. The river water was stinky and pungent, and the muddy water wrapped around me, almost suffocating me. I gritted my teeth, enduring the nausea churning in my stomach, and struggled to swim forward. Their shouts came from behind, but I couldn't look back. I could only swim desperately, escape desperately. I don't know how long I swam, my strength was almost exhausted, my legs began to cramp, and my body gradually sank. Just when I thought I was about to drown in this filthy river, a pair of arms suddenly stretched out from the water and steadily grabbed me. I barely opened my eyes, and through my blurred vision, I saw a familiar face. It was Serena Shin. She held my arm tightly, and before I could react, she pulled me down into the water. The light underwater was dim, and I could only vaguely see a dark hole in front. Oh. F me. Serena Shin led me into it, and it turned out to be an abandoned drain pipe. We swam along the pipe for a while and finally found a space where we could breathe. Leaning against the rusty pipe, I gasped for air, my throat full of the stinky taste, almost making me want to throw up. Serena Shin was in no better condition. Her face was pale and her forehead was covered in cold sweat. But her eyes were fixed on me. Suddenly, she threw herself into my arms, her voice trembling. "That's great, Ethan, you really didn't die." Her hug was so tight that I could barely breathe. I pushed her away forcefully, asking coldly, "What are you doing here?" Serena Shin's face instantly turned gloomy, her eyes filled with anger. She took a deep breath and slowly said, "Ethan, things are more complicated than we thought." In her narration, I finally understood the whole story. It turned out that the day after I jumped into the sea, the Gu family was suddenly surrounded by the police. The police accused the Gu family of being involved in kidnapping and were going to take them all back to the police station for investigation. Owen Gu had a big fight with mom and dad and didn't return home all night, managing to escape the arrest. Serena Shin was worried about Owen Gu's safety and wanted to find him in advance to give him a heads up. However, Owen Gu misunderstood Serena Shin's intentions. He thought Serena Shin was working with the police and set a trap, luring her to the abandoned factory to kill her. Serena Shin fought desperately and barely managed to escape. "I wanted to find a chance to escape and call the police, but I didn't expect to meet you here." Serena Shin's voice was low, with a hint of fatigue. I noticed that her clothes were torn and she was covered in wounds. There were bruises on her face, and she had obviously gone through a fierce fight. Some of the wounds were infected and festering because of the dirty water, looking shocking. After listening to her words, I fell into deep thought. In my past life, after Owen Gu died, the police also came to the Gu family to investigate. But because of his death, the investigation was ultimately dropped. Looking back now, the truth was so horrifying. It turned out that Owen Gu didn't simply commit suicide, but committed suicide in advance out of fear of being convicted. Serena Shin was silent for a moment, then said in a hoarse voice, "Ethan, I was wrong. I've been deceived by him all along, and I only saw his true colors now." I laughed coldly, mocking, "Serena Shin, do you think that saying these things now can make up for what you did in your past life?" Serena Shin's face instantly turned pale, she opened her mouth as if to say something, but ultimately didn't say anything. I turned to look around, saying calmly, "Let's go, this drainpipe system must have an exit." Serena Shin nodded, following behind me. We continued forward along the abandoned drainpipe. It was pitch black all around, with only the faint beam of the flashlight illuminating the way forward. Suddenly, a series of messy footsteps sounded from behind, mixed with the heavy breathing and curses of the villagers. "Hurry! They can't run far!" a rough voice shouted. My heart was beating fast, my palms were covered in cold sweat. Serena Shin grabbed my hand tightly, whispering, "There's a fork in the road ahead, let's split up and run," to divert their attention. I shook my head, my voice very low. "No, there are too many of them, splitting up will only make us more dangerous. We have to find the exit together, and then call the police." Serena Shin hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded, "Okay, I'll listen to you." We continued forward, and suddenly, a faint light appeared in front of us. I was overjoyed, speeding up. There might be an exit over there. However, when we got closer, we found that the light was not an exit, but an abandoned machine room. The machine room was filled with debris, and there were several old machines in the corners. I quickly looked around and found a rusty iron door on the wall. "Over there!" I pointed to the iron door, whispering. Serena Shin nodded, quickly ran over, and pushed the door hard, but found that it was locked. She frowned, cursing softly, "Damn it." Just then, the footsteps behind us were getting closer and closer, and the kidnappers' shouts were almost at our ears. In my haste, I grabbed an iron rod on the ground and handed it to Serena Shin. "Break it open." Serena Shin took the iron rod and smashed it at the lock. After a few loud bangs, the lock finally came loose. She kicked the door open and pulled me in. Behind the door was a narrow passage, and at the end of the passage we could vaguely see a ray of light. We ran forward desperately, the pursuers behind us having already rushed into the machine room, their footsteps and shouts echoing in the passage. "They're up ahead! Chase!" We finally ran out of the passage, and in front of us was an abandoned industrial area. There were a few street lights in the distance, their dim light illuminating the road ahead. I gasped for air, pointing to the distance. "There's a road over there, let's run over there and flag down a car to call the police." Serena Shin nodded, pulling me to keep running forward. However, just as we ran a few steps, a gunshot suddenly rang out behind us, the bullet whizzing past my ear and hitting the wall in front of us. I shuddered in fear, my pace slowing down involuntarily. Serena Shin grabbed me, roaring, "Don't stop! Run!" We sprinted forward with all our might, finally reaching the road. However, there was no one on the road, not even a single car. My heart sank to the bottom. Were we really going to die here? Just then, the sound of an engine came from the distance. I looked up and saw a truck driving towards us. Without hesitation, I rushed to the middle of the road, waving my hands and shouting, "Stop! Help!" The truck driver was obviously startled. And slammed on the brakes, the car stopping in front of us. "Are you trying to die?" I didn't bother to explain, rushed to the car window, and said anxiously, "Sir, help! Someone wants to kill us. Please take us away from here, we need to call the police." The driver was stunned for a moment, looked at our disheveled appearance, and then looked at the villagers chasing from the distance, finally nodding. "Get in the car quickly." Serena Shin and I quickly climbed into the truck, and the car started again, leaving the villagers far behind. I collapsed in my seat, breathing a sigh of relief, but my heart was still tense. Serena Shin took my hand, saying softly, "Ethan, we're safe now." I nodded, pushing away her hand, still feeling lingering fear. The driver asked, "Who did you piss off to be chased like this?" as he drove. I took a deep breath and said slowly, "Sir, please take us to the nearest police station." Seeing my reluctance to elaborate, the driver didn't press further. 15 minutes later, we finally arrived at the police station. I gave a brief account of what had happened. The police officer's face turned grim, and he immediately organized a team to go to the abandoned factory for an arrest. Serena Shin and I were arranged to rest at the police station, awaiting further news. Serena sat beside me and whispered, "Ethan, I'm so sorry. If it weren't for my stupidity back then, you wouldn't be going through this." I shook my head, my voice calm. Once this is over, just let me leave. Serena was silent for a moment, a look of pain on her face, but she finally nodded. I looked out the window. The night was dark, but I knew dawn would eventually come. Under police interrogation, Owen Gu finally confessed to his crimes. His voice was calm, as if recounting something that had nothing to do with him. I knew my identity since I was a child. Over the years, I've been in contact with the villagers in the mountain, helping them target single women and children. And you? He looked at me through the door, a cold smile on his lips. Ethan Gu, your disappearance as a child wasn't an accident either. It was my biological mother who did it. After she kidnapped you, she left me at the Gu family's doorstep. She knew your parents were desperate for their lost son and would definitely adopt me. And just like that, I enjoyed 22 years of blessings in your family, while you were tortured alive in the mountain for 22 years. Outside the interrogation room, I was shaking all over. Hearing the truth firsthand was different from just guessing it. I never imagined that people could be so wicked. Serena covered my ears with concern. Ethan, don't listen. It's all over now. Inside the interrogation room, Owen suddenly went crazy. Serena Shin. I won't let you touch him. You're my wife. How can you touch another man? Serena gave him a disgusted look and pulled me away from the police station. Owen's hysterical shouts came from behind, but they were quickly suppressed by the police. Ultimately, Owen Gu was sentenced to life imprisonment. The day before he went to prison, he requested to see me. Dad, Mom, and Ashley Gu were worried and insisted on accompanying me. In the prison visiting room, Owen Gu was wearing a prison uniform, a mocking smile on his face. Mom immediately broke down, her voice trembling as she accused him. It's all your fault. It's all your fault that you separated me and Ethan for so many years. Owen didn't care, and his smile became even more unrestrained. Isn't it because you guys are stupid, letting me play you like a fiddle? Dad supported Mom, angrily cursing, we raised you for so many years, only to raise a viper. Ugh. Owen sneered, his tone sharp. A viper? Do you think I wanted to be raised by you? I thought every day about what your expressions would be if you knew the truth. Now I see it, and it's so satisfying. Ashley Gu finally couldn't bear it anymore and stepped forward, shout. Enough. They raised you for so many years. Do you have any conscience at all? Conscience? Owen suddenly laughed maniacally. Ashley Gu, what right do you have to talk to me about conscience? Have you forgotten how you forced Ethan Gu to donate his liver to me? Hearing this, Ashley's face turned pale, and she looked at me helplessly. Owen continued to mock relentlessly, let me tell you, I didn't have liver disease at all. It was just a scam I paid a doctor to create. Ethan Gu's liver wasn't transplanted to me either. I threw it to the wild dogs, ha ha ha. His laughter was shrill and piercing, like a knife, cutting into everyone's heart. Ashley's face instantly turned ashen, her fists clenched tightly. She suddenly rushed forward, roaring, you bastard. However, the prison guards held her back tightly, and she couldn't get close to Owen at all. Owen laughed until tears came out of his eyes. He wiped the corners of his eyes and turned to look at me. Ethan Gu, you won this time. I'm really unwilling. If there's a next life, I definitely won't let you have it easy. I gave him a cold look and turned to leave. If he wanted to say these things to me, it was unnecessary. Because in my previous life, I had already lost completely. After this incident, Dad and Mom were deeply affected and stayed home all day, no longer caring about the company's affairs. The Gu family's glory seemed to collapse overnight, and the once wealthy family was now just an empty shell. At the same time, Serena Shin was also having a hard time. Her and Owen Gu's wedding invitations had already been sent to all business friends. Now that Owen Gu was in trouble, the Shin family's business was also affected. Partners terminated their contracts one after another, and shareholders scrambled to withdraw their investments. Overnight, the Shin family fell from the clouds into the mud and went bankrupt. Serena was running around frantically, trying to save the Shin family's business. At this moment, I was sitting in the airport's VIP lounge, leisurely drinking coffee, waiting for my flight to the other side of the ocean. The sunlight outside the window shone on my face, warm and peaceful. Suddenly, a pair of black high heels stopped in front of me. I looked up and met Ashley Gu's apologetic face. "Ethan, are you really leaving?" Seeing me nod, a look of pain flashed across Ashley's face. She handed me a document. "This is what Mom, Dad, and I want to give you." I took the document, glanced at it indifferently, and pushed it back. "I don't need it." Ashley was stunned. "Ethan, this is all that's left of the Gu family's assets. You really don't want it?" I raised my head and looked at her with a calm gaze. "I don't need your compensation, and I don't need your guilt. I just hope that from now on, we will never have any relationship." Ashley's face instantly turned pale. "Ethan, I really know I was wrong. Can't you give me another chance? We're family." I looked at her, without a trace of emotion in my heart. "Ashley Gu, some mistakes cannot be undone. The family ties between us were worn away by your choices, time and time again." The boarding announcement sounded on the loudspeaker. I stood up, picked up my suitcase, and said lightly, "I should go." Ashley stood there, pleadingly calling out, "Ethan, are you really leaving? Is there really no way to salvage this?" I stopped, looked back at her, and shook my head. "Don't tell Serena Shin where I went. From now on, I have nothing to do with you." Ashley's shoulders slumped instantly, and the light in her eyes completely disappeared. She nodded, her voice hoarse. "Okay. I promise you." I didn't linger any longer and turned to walk towards the boarding gate. Behind me, Ashley Gu's figure gradually blurred and eventually disappeared from my sight. 5 years later, I opened a Chinese restaurant in a small town on the other side of the ocean. Life was peaceful and fulfilling. The past grievances and hatreds seemed like distant dreams. On my birthday, my wife and son insisted on closing the restaurant and rushing to make a feast for me. I was happy to relax, sitting alone in front of the restaurant, soaking up the sun. Suddenly, a crisp clinking sound rang out at the door. I got up to check and found a black diamond brooch on the ground. The brooch was old, and the decorations were worn. It was clear that it had been held and rubbed in someone's hand for many years. And this brooch was the one I had deliberately thrown on the reef back then. Holding the brooch, a complex emotion welled up in my heart. In the distance, a familiar figure flashed around the corner. I looked up, but only saw an empty street. At this moment, my son's clear call came from inside the house. "Daddy, dinner's ready." I smiled, casually tossed the brooch into the trash can by the door, and turned to walk inside. "Coming!" Those past pains and regrets had long since faded away with the wind. Now, my life is complete, and I have no regrets.